Hello. Okay, so we are going to be reading the induction scene 2. And so go ahead and get back to your Folger study. Folger, Shakespeare. Okay, let me just read the actual website because I'm messing this up horribly. Okay, it's shakespeare.folger.edu. Get to that website, and we are now at the induction scene 2. And so the Lord has entered. Chris Sly is up in a room upstairs, and they are going to act like he's a lord. There's also a company of players that have come in, and they have been told, like, hey, don't do it, whatever he does, don't act like it's strange, just kind of keep going. And then they put him, they bring Bartholomew, the page, is going to dress up like a woman. Now, I will say this. So Shakespeare, if you know anything about your Shakespeare, you remember that in Shakespeare's time, only men performed in plays. So Shakespeare's entire company of people, they're all males. There are no women performing in the parts. So that means whenever you have a young, beautiful maiden, that's a teenage boy who's maybe 12 or 13. He's still maybe pretty scrawny and skinny, and his voice hasn't dropped yet. So he doesn't have that big, strong man voice. He has a little high-pitched voice, and so he can kind of play a woman's part, okay? At least this was what they thought back in the day. It was inappropriate for women to be on stage. The stage was considered like you're exhibiting yourself in some way, and it was wrong. Women had to be protected and kind of kept back and kept in the home and protected from all the big scary world that could harm them. And so women were not allowed to be performers for a bit longer, okay? And so boys would play the parts. Now, I think the really hilarious people, and again, if you've remembered the visits we've had from Stone Soup Shakespeare, the hilarious parts are the older women who are played by these older guys, sometimes like with a beard and stuff. If you can think back to like the nurse in Romeo and Juliet, she's hilarious. Like she's saying inappropriate things. She's just a mess, and she's played by some middle-aged man who's just having a fine time playing dress up. Okay, so I think again we have this idea, this theme, which Shakespeare would have all over the place in his plays, with the very nature of men playing all of the parts, but the idea of appearance versus reality. Okay, reality versus fantasy fiction, or what everything looks like, appearance versus reality. Sometimes things aren't what they seem, right? Sometimes something looks a certain way, but the reality is over here somewhere else, okay? Think of social media. A lot of times people look like they have the perfect life. It's the appearance. Oh my gosh, everything is perfect. All of their food, perfect. All of their family photos, perfect. Everything. And then reality is over here. Okay, like, if you look at my Facebook page, I'll have pictures of all the family, and everybody is standing so like perfectly. Oh my gosh, the appearance is like so great. For every one picture we have that's perfect, we have 38 pictures, and every single one of them, all of my kids are like, like they're cross-eyed, they look ridiculous, it's horrifying. Like reality, they don't actually look that way in real life. It's just they're a mess and they're cutting up. And so all of our pictures, the reality of a photo shoot in the Olsen household, it's traumatizing. Like I, need to take ibuprofen and lie down after we've taken photos, because it's awful. But that appearance, man, I have that perfect shot of the whole family, and it's beautiful. But reality is over here somewhere else. They're like wrestling. They're like, I hate you. I don't like you. Man, he's pushing me. Mom. That's reality. Shakespeare loves this type of a theme, okay? So we're going to get that over and over again in this play. Appearance versus reality. So in this induction scene 2, it tells us, I'm going to again read you the part from the little, remember in my playbook it gives us a little synopsis. It also has it on your website, okay? So it tells us that the newly awakened Sly is offered delicacies and fine clothes. When he demands his usual ale and beef, the lord and servants tell him that he has been suffering from delusions. So ale and beef would be like, they would be like probably things that like, maybe lowly people eat. After they inform him that he has a beautiful wife, he wants to see her. I mean, right? Here we have this beggar guy on the street, and they tell him that he's married and that he has a lady that's his love, and he's like, wait, what? Did you just, You better see that. The Lord's page, who impersonates the wife, persuades Sly to watch the play that's about to begin. Okay, so that's what's happening in this scene. So I'm going to go ahead and play the scene for us. Listen along. Remember, you just want to scroll down, read along as we're going, and hopefully you're able to kind of understand everything and hear everything really well. Okay, let me get this induction scene 2 started. Sweet tunes.
For God's sake, a pot of small ale.
Will it please your lordship drink a cup of sack?
Will it please your honour taste of these conserves? What raiment will your honour wear today?
I just want to point out again, remember the book that you're going to get, it tells us that, so Sly asks right away after he's, burping and being a little gross, he asks for a pot of small ale, okay? So ale would be like cheap beer, okay? The first serving man says, will it please your lord to drink a cup of sack? Now on my sidebar it says sack is costly, dry Spanish wine, such as sherry. So he's just asked for it. Think of he's asked for like this terrible, like really cheap, watery beer. And the servant's like, oh, Lord, would you like some nice sherry instead? Because that's what lords drink. So already they're messing with him.
I am Christopher Sly. Call not me on an lordship. I ne'er drank sack in me life. And if you give me any conserves, give me conserves of beef. Ne'er ask me what raiment I'll wear, for I have no more doublets than backs, no more stockings than legs, nor no more shoes than feet. Nay, sometimes more feet than shoes, or such shoes as my toes look through the over-leather. Heavens.
Okay, so he's telling them like right away, like, dude, I don't drink sherry. Like, what in the world are you talking about? Think of somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot, and somebody's asking them to drink like some type of really fancy drink, and they're like, what are you talking about? I don't drink fancy things. And then, he's like, I don't wear fancy clothes. I don't wear fancy stockings, shoes. Sometimes my shoes, like, my toes are peeking out of my shoes. Like, that's the type of shoes I wear. I don't wear, like, fancy little booted stockings and things. Like, that's weird.
Cease this idle humour in your honour. Oh, that a mighty man of such descent, of such possessions and so high esteem, should be infused with so foul a spirit.
What? Would you make me mad? Am not I Christopher Sly, old Sly's son of Burton Heath? By birth a peddler, by education a card maker, by transmutation a bear. And now, by present profession, the dinker. Ask Marian Hackett, the fat alewife of Wincott, if she know me not. If she say I am not 14 pence on the score for sheer ale, score me up for the lying knave in Christendom. What? I am not distraught?
Oh, this it is that makes your lady mourn. Oh, this it is that makes your servants droon. Hence comes it that your kindred shuns your house, as beaten hence by your strange lunacy. O noble lord, bethink thee of thy birth. Call home thy ancient thoughts from banishment, and banish hence these abject, lowly dreams. Look how thy servants do attend on thee, each in his office ready at thy beck. Wilt thou have music? Hark, Apollo play, and 20 caged nightingales do sing. Or wilt thou sleep? We'll have thee to a couch, softer and sweeter than the lustful bed on purpose trimmed up for Semiramis. Say thou wilt walk, we will bestrew the ground. Or wilt thou ride? Thy horses shall be trapped, their harness studded all with gold and pearl. Dost thou love hawking? Thou hast hawks will soar above the morning lark. Or wilt thou hunt? Thy hounds shall make the welkin answer them, and fetch shrill echoes from the hollow earth. Say thou wilt course, thy My greyhounds are as swift as breathed stags, aye, fleeter than the roe.
Dost thou love pictures? We will fetch thee straight Adonis painted by a running brook, and Cytherea all in sedges hid, which seem to move and wanton with her breath, even as the waving sedges play with wind.
We'll show thee Io as she was a maid, and how she was beguiled and surprised, as lively painted as the deed was done. Or Daphne, roaming through a thorny wood, scratching her legs, that one shall swear she bleeds, and at that side shall sad Apollo weep, so workmanly the blood and tears are drawn. Thou art a lord, and nothing but a lord. Thou hast a lady far more beautiful than any woman in this waning age, until the tears that she hath shed for thee like envious floods o'errun her lovely face. She was the fairest creature in the world, and yet she is inferior to none.
Let's pause for a second. Okay, so all of these different serving men, their attendants to the actual Lord, okay? And remember, they've been given instructions by their Lord. Hey, treat this guy like he's a Lord when he wakes up. Tell him he's a Lord. Refer to him as a Lord. Have everything ready for him like you would me, a Lord. And this is going to be great, guys. And so they do, man. They are playing their part. The one guy, he's like, wilt thou have music? And he's like, and the guy over here like starts playing a harp or something. Like, what just happened? You know? And so Chris Sly is sitting back in bed, you know, this kind of gross, debased, lowly man. And everybody around him's telling him that he's a lord. And he's looking, and they start playing music, and they're trying to bring him sherry, this fancy drink, instead of ale, cheap beer. And then, you know, they're talking about, hey, do you want to go on a hunt? We could do that. Do you want to see pictures? We have all of these pictures. And they start mentioning pictures of like Adonis running by a brook. They have pictures of Io when she was a maid and how she was beguiled, and Daphne roaming through a thorny wood, scratching her legs, trying to get away from Apollo. These are all scenes out of Greek mythology. They would be, okay, so for a person who actually is nobly born, they would be well-versed in Greek mythology. And for somebody who is lowly born, maybe they probably recognize some of these names: Adonis, Daphne, Io. That's what those educated people, they get to know about those people like Adonis and Io and Daphne, all those mythology people. So he would recognize those names, and he would think, am I a lord? Weird. Is it possible? Am I a lord? And then they start telling him about, you have a wife, and she's beautiful, and she's fair, and she's cried so much because you've been so sick. Let's see what Christopher Sly says to this idea of having a wife.
Am I a lord, and have I such a lady? Or do I dream? Or have I dreamed till now? I do not sleep. I see, I hear, I speak, I smell sweet savours, and I feel soft things. Upon my life, I am a lord indeed, and not a dinker nor Christopher Sly. Well, bring our lady hither to our side, and once again a pot of the smallest ale.
Okay, so once he hears this whole wife situation, notice with the music, he was like, I don't think I'm a lord. And they're mentioning like, do you want to go with your hounds and hunt? He's like, I don't think I'm a lord. You know, they're like, do you want us to get you some pictures to look at? I don't think I'm a lord. You know, we could get you paintings with Adonis and Daphne and Io, all these famous characters from Greek mythology. I don't think I'm a lord. What about your wife? We could bring her in. Did you say wife? I might be a lord. Interesting. So he kind of changes his tune. I am so surprised whenever he hears that he might have a wife. Interesting. Not sure what that's trying to say, but interesting. So he says, bring her in and bring me some of that ale. They're probably like, you don't drink ale. You forgot again.
Wilt please your mightiness to wash your hands? Oh, how we joy to see your wit restored. Oh, that once more you knew but what you are. These 15 years you have been in a dream, or when you waked, so waked as if you slept.
These 15 years, by my fay, a goodly now. But did I never speak of all that time?
Oh, yes, my lord, but very idle words. For though you lay here in this goodly chamber, yet would you say ye were beaten out of door, and rail upon the hostess of the house, and say you would present her at the leet, because she brought stone jugs and no sealed quarts. Sometimes you would call out for Cicely Hackett.
Aye, the woman's maid of the house.
Why, sir, you know no house, nor no such maid, nor no such men as you have reckoned up, as Stephen Sly, and old John Naps of Greek, and Peter Turf, and Henry Pimpernel, and 20 more such names and men as these, which never were, nor no man ever saw.
Now, God be thanked for my good amends.
Amen.
I thank thee, thou shalt not lose by it.
Okay, so they mentioned to him that, well, he says, they tell him that 15 years you have been in this kind of sickness where you don't really know reality. And in that time, you talk about the hostess who's kicking you out of the alehouse. That just happened, so that would be a strong memory in his mind. You're calling for the maid of the house, Cicely Hackett. You're mentioning your friends, Stephen Sly and old John Naps and Peter Turf and Henry Pimpernel, none of whom exist. They're all figments of your imagination from the past 15 years. These are not real people, but you talk about them a lot because you're kind of crazy, is what they're telling him. So all of that would ring really true, and this is probably stuff he's like said in his sleep, in his drunken stupor, as he's been passed out and kind of, he's not really like asleep. He's drunk asleep. He's passed out asleep. So he's saying things here and there, and so they've paid attention to what he said, and now they're using all of that to say, see, the fact that you know these names, that proves you're a lord. Now his lady is going to be coming in.
How fares my noble lord?
Marry, I fare well, for here is cheer enough. Where is my wife?
Here, noble lord. What is thy will with her?
Are you my wife and will not call me husband? My men should call me lord. I am your good man.
My husband and my lord and husband, I am your wife in all obedience.
I know it well. What must I call her?
Madam.
Else, madam, or Joan, madam?
Madam, and nothing else. So lords call ladies.
Madam, wife, they say that I have dreamed and slept above some 15 year or more.
Aye, and the time seems 30 unto me, being all this time abandoned from your bed.
'Tis much. Servants, leave me and her alone. Madam, undress you and come now to bed.
What is happening?
Thrice noble lord, let me entreat of you to pardon me yet for a night or two, or if not so, until the sun be set, for your physicians have expressly charged in peril to incur your former malady, that I should yet absent me from your bed. I hope this reason stands for my excuse.
Aye, it stands so that I may hardly tarry so long, but I would be loath to fall into my dreams again. I will therefore tarry in despite of the flesh and the blood.
We need to talk for a second. So the page, this is a boy who comes in and he's like, I'm my husband and my lord and husband, and he's like, remember, he has a high-pitched voice and he is trying to say all those dutiful things that he thinks a wife would say. Sly doesn't even know how to refer to his wife. He's like, what do I call you? And they're like, you refer to her as madam. And he's like, Alice madam or Joan madam? Like, they're telling you that's what you refer to her as Madam. Madam, would you like to, sit and chat a while? Like, that's the name you call her. What are you doing? He doesn't even know how to refer to a lady. So evidently he's not been around actually many ladies in his life. And then the page right away says Bartholomew, man, he's taking one for the team here. He's like, it seems it's only been 15 years, but it seems like it's been 30 to me since the time you abandoned from your bed. Now, at this point, Christopher Sly is like, well, that's a thing we can fix. We can just get right into the bed right now, right here, and woo! And like, he grabs Bartholomew, is like, come on, let's go for it. And Bartholomew's like, ah! Way more than I bargained for. No. We can't, you need to rest until you're completely recovered, at least a couple of days. That's what the doctor said. The doctor said that you need your rest. I really want to be here in bed right now, but I can't because the doctor says you have to rest for a couple more days. And Sly's like, ugh, whatever. Okay, I don't want to, start being crazy again, so I guess we'll obey the doctor, whatever. Right then a messenger comes in. So this is out of hand. The scene is entirely out of hand. By the way, if you were like, as it's going towards they're like talking about bedroom things and you're like, Shakespeare, what are you doing? Oh no, this is Shakespeare. Shakespeare is always talking about like funny, hilarious things. He has a lot of references to like bodily humor. He has a lot of references to sex and things like that in his plays. This is straight up like Shakespeare at his best. Like, he's hilarious. And the audience, whether it's the nobility that are around the outside of the Globe Theater, they're in those seats, or whether it's the groundlings that are on the floor, they're standing on that dirt floor of the Globe Theater, everybody's dying laughing at this point because Chris Sly is just trying to get his wife into his bed. If he has a wife, great, let's go to bed. And that is hilarious. Okay, so, man, Shakespeare knows his work, right? All right, a messenger comes in.
Your honours players, hearing your amendment, are come to play a pleasant comedy. For so your doctors hold it very meet, seeing too much sadness hath congealed your blood, and melancholy is the nurse of frenzy. Therefore they thought it good you hear a play, and frame your mind to mirth and merriment, which bars 1,000 harms and lengthens life.
Marry, I will. Let them play it. It's not a comedy, a Christmas gamble, or a tumbling trick.
No, my good lord, it is more pleasing stuff.
Well, household stuff.
It is a kind of history.
Well, we'll see it. Come, madam wife, sit by my side and let the world slip. We shall ne'er be younger.
Okay, so right at that moment, so things have gotten a little bit kind of crazy. Chris Sly is trying to yank the, wife into bed with him, and they're all like, whoa, distraction time. And so the messenger comes in and says, hey, the company of players, they're ready to perform. And so Chris Sly is like, I guess if I have to be good for a couple of days, all right, we'll watch a play. And he's asking what type of play is it? Is it comedy? Because remember, comedies would be something that every class would like, but the low classes for sure. Low classes don't necessarily probably care as much about maybe tragedies of highly born people or history plays as much. They like comedies. They like something that's funny, makes you chuckle, makes you giggle. That's what he's into. And she's like, oh, no, I think it's a history. And he's like, ugh, well, come sit right here beside me and we'll watch for a bit. So he's ready to see his play. Okay, that's the end of the induction. Now we will see these characters in, there's another little place during the play where they kind of pop up and they're talking about the play itself. And then we never see this again. This is really, it's kind of a framing device. So in some pieces of literature, you have a framing device that's like a story that sets up the actual story. And this story, a lot of times, is its own complete story. Well, in The Taming of the Shrew, you have the beginning of the of the framing device. You have the entrance of the framing device. You have a little pop-up in the middle of the play somewhere, but you don't have the ending. I really wish Shakespeare had finished it off. I would love to see Chris Sly at the end of this play and see what he thinks about this play. So now we're going to the actual story. The induction is just that introduction. It kind of delivers some of those ideas, those main themes of the play. Remember, again, the idea of appearance, fantasy fiction appearance versus reality. That's a big theme in this story. Are things the way we think they are? That's a big theme for today. No matter what you're doing in life, does your appearance and your reality match? As you look at people around you, does their appearance match their reality? I think we work pretty hard sometimes to make our appearance different than our reality. I don't know why. As humans, we just we want to kind of play a part. So Shakespeare kind of makes this premise, this idea that we're all playing parts, right? That we all have this idea of what our appearance should be. The reality is oftentimes much stranger, much simpler, much different. And maybe there's a point that he's trying to make there. Maybe we should be more like our reality than our appearance. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that at the end. Okay, so that is scene 2 of the induction. I'm going to set these videos up and let them run, and you're going to answer. There are 5 questions about the induction. You're going to answer those. Those will be due on Friday. Friday is when we'll be having our Zoom class. So hopefully by the time you get to the Zoom class, you will have listened to both of these videos, you will have read the induction, and you will have answered those questions. And I want you to have the pre-reading worksheet kind of, near you. Think about some of those questions that we talked about and be ready to talk about those questions. And then let's be ready to talk about Chris Sly a little bit and this induction, okay? Okay, I'll see you guys later. I hope you're enjoying it so far. This really, it's a funny play. And if you haven't loved everything about it so far, it's okay, it gets better. Like the actual characters in the actual play, we haven't even met them yet. We just have Chris Sly and the Lord so far. So I think you're gonna love this. Okay, I will see you guys later. Bye.